but I want to go back much further in time because, of course, I am an ancient historian. When I started to study Iraq 35 years ago, I only studied the ancient past, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians. And in Britain in those days that was normal. But of course in 1990 you all know what happened here in Iraq. And that fundamentally changed the ways in which international researchers thought about Iraq's history. So for my teacher's generation, it was normal to come and live and work in Iraq with Iraqi colleagues and then to return home. But often, certainly my teacher, Jeremy Black, published a lot with Iraqi colleagues. And when the problem started in the summer of 1990, my teacher said, "Oh, it will just be a few months and then we'll all go back to Iraq and soon you will come." And it was 11 years before I could visit. So for me, for a long time, Iraq was something that somewhere I couldn't visit. But equally, my teacher's offices were full of Iraqi friends and colleagues who had escaped from Iraq. And so I learned how important it was to treat our colleagues with respect and understand how difficult life was here then. And at that time, I just thought that was something that my teachers did, and it wasn't very little to do with my research. And as most of you know, my research has been on how intellectuals 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, existed in the world, what their social and political, cultural and intellectual contexts were. And so you can see from the titles of some of my books that they have some words in them that ended up being very influential. So thinking about social history, thinking about culture, and in particular a project I started nearly 20 years ago about knowledge networks, that is how people in the ancient past communicated with each other. And so that's intellectually how the Nahrein network began, by thinking about how I could use those concepts and those methods from my study of the ancient past to make Iraq a better place in the present and future. Because my teachers really taught me that I have made my career through studying Iraq, and I have a moral responsibility to give something back. But it was not simply the academic work, it came from many, many good people. I really believe in networks in real life too. So there were many people in the UK, originally my late teacher, Dr. Jeremy Black. Many of you will know Dr. Jane Moon and Dr. John Curtis. And then in 2016, the British government announced a new research program to develop equal collaborations between the UK and other countries to work together to address some of the world's most difficult challenges. And two people, friends of mine, Dr. Moody al-Rashid and Juliette Desplat, said, you need to apply for those funds, you need to use all your friends in Iraq. And so it's thanks to these women that I came back and spent a lot of time talking to people here. But even before that, several people in this room will recognize themselves, their younger selves, because when the network began, I had been coming to Iraq very regularly at the invitation of many friends here. And it was this real world re-engagement with the country and with the wonderful people here that gave me the ideas, because you gave me the ideas, to think about how we could work together to prioritize Iraqi expertise in Iraqi history and heritage. And of course in 2006, 2017, this was still the Daesh era, and a lot of international organizations were being very problematic about Iraqi history and heritage, thinking that they had all the answers and ignoring people here. So it was a great opportunity to change. Now you all know then the whole point of the network is to put you at the centre of producing knowledge about your country. It's not about me. I'm here to help, and I've been here to learn. And because you have chosen what matters to you in your cities, in your towns, in your areas, that has completely transformed international understanding of what the Iraqi past is like. But more than that, and we have heard a lot of this weekend, you have taken your universities, your museums, your archaeological sites, and shown how they can be useful and meaningful to Iraqi society, to culture, to the economy, to the environment, to real people in the here and now. And that heritage matters in many different ways, however small and however large, and that has been transformative. So, and I'd also like to remind you, although we're very sad that the project is ending now, after 8 years, it's twice as long as we originally planned. The British government funding was only for 4 years, and that we were then very lucky that a private philanthropist saw what we were doing and offered us, well, initially another 10 years worth of money. And if my life had been different, perhaps we would still be working. And I will talk in a minute about the personal reasons for stopping. So we've heard today many examples of how our research aims, which I articulated on the basis of conversations with you 10 years ago. We're historians, we study the past, so we need to use the past to understand how Iraq is today. There's been a lot of that. Fundamentally for me, it was getting your voices, your expertise to be heard outside Iraq and inside Iraq. And that has changed so much thanks to you. We've also heard a lot this weekend about how museums, archaeological sites, NGOs, businesses like Ali's are better, working better for the communities, for the country. And again, that is thanks to you. You have done all that. When I hear about a local mayor or a governor reading your reports and incorporating your work into the plans for the future, that makes me so happy. When I hear about the number of people who come to your events, who learn how to understand heritage better, that makes me very happy too. And I've seen for you, for so many, for your students, but for you yourselves, how your careers have developed as a result. And that's marvellous too. And we've necessarily had to think about violence and conflict, sometimes to use the past to escape from a very difficult present and to discover joy and peace in the past, but also as a means of addressing some of the more uncomfortable, violent, traumatic aspects of Iraq's past too. And you have done that with such sensitivity and care It's been so impressive and moving. And then over the past few years, we've really needed to think together about the fact that temperatures in this country are rising dramatically. The rivers are drying. The world in general is becoming a much more fragile and dangerous place. And many of you have responded to that challenge very effectively. Now, we've talked a lot about research, but we've also been reminded that underpinning that research, we need to do good research, we need good tools and good intellectual framework for doing that. And I don't have exact numbers because Zainab and I are still finalising them, so I'm going to give a bit vague at the moment. But let's say we have probably given research capacity development to nearly 500 people, or will have done by the end of the programme. We have funded 30 research projects, small and large, all of which have had Iraqi leadership. Some of them have been collaborations with international researchers, but many of them have just been you doing what matters to you. And again, we're going to have to count them up, the numbers of papers and other outputs that have emerged from those projects and from the academic training, and it's going to be a phenomenal range of academic and non-academic outputs. And then meanwhile, we in London and with Roisin's projects in Suleimani have been trying to think about how we synthesize what we've learned from you and promote change using your research as well as doing our own. So yeah, some really big ideas about how we tackle difficult pasts, how we address some of those really complex questions about how the state uses heritage and how it responds to it, and what we do about the fact that so much of the material remains of the Iraqi past is now outside the country, using some of the most current technologies. So we can quote lots of numbers, and we can see very concrete numbers of outputs and say these things have happened. But as we've learned this weekend, I think that the very idea of the network has been so powerful. Oh, we've lost the slides, I'm sorry.